Welcome back. This time we're talking about The Birth of a Nation, actor Nate Parker's passion project about the Nat Turner slave rebellion of 1831. A film that he both directed and co-wrote, as well as starring as Nat Turner. Now obviously this has become one of the more controversial films of the year since a sexual assault allegation against Parker during his time in college have resurfaced since this past summer. Now I'll touch on the controversy a little bit at the end of this video in regards to how it's going to affect this film's Oscar aspirations, but first I want to talk about the film itself, because it's been ballied about as a Best Picture contender ever since its debut at Sundance and subsequent purchase by Fox Searchlight for a record $17.5 million. But while the film tells a compelling, powerful, and historically important true story, it just honestly doesn't live up to all of the hype that it's been getting most of this year. It's definitely a good film, but I would not put it into the great or excellent category. And that's really because of two things. First, on the technical side, there are more than a few moments in this film that it really feels like it was made by a first-time director, which Nate Parker is, including some less than stellar editing decisions, as well as some very repetitive cinematography techniques. While the film does a good job of telling Nat Turner's life story, it really kind of neglects the entire point of the film, which is the rebellion in 1831. This is a 2-hour film, and the rebellion lasts maybe 10 minutes at the end. Nate Parker has stated that one of the main reasons why he wanted to make this film was to shine a light on that rebellion and its historic importance. And if that indeed was his primary purpose, I have to say he kind of fails, because I don't believe the film really does do justice to the event itself. And in fact, if you didn't know anything else about the rebellion, you'd really come out of this movie thinking that it was a very short and frankly unimportant event, except for the horrific backlash by white slave owners against slaves throughout the South. As far as the overall story of the film, we first meet Nat Turner as a child, the slave of a Virginia plantation owner. We get scenes of him playing with the plantation owner's son Samuel, as well as the departure of his father after a run-in with some slave catchers. Nat spends his entire life working in the cotton fields of the plantation, and soon we see him as an adult, played by Nate Parker, now owned by Samuel, played by Arnie Hammer. Nat was an intelligent boy and learned how to read, an ability that Samuel's mother encouraged and taught him the Bible, leading him to become a preacher among the slaves. This ultimately becomes a benefit to Samuel because he's able to hire him out to other plantation owners to preach to their slaves, using specific verses about obeying your masters to keep the slaves under control. We also get to see the multitude of atrocities that he witnesses and later experiences himself, setting up his leading the rebellion. Now, as I said, there are just certain things about this film that didn't quite work for me. There are a number of dream sequences that I'm assuming are referencing the visions that the real-life Nat Turner said he experienced and were messages from God. In the film, they're not explained and never really feel connected to the rest of the movie, and come across as basically just random imagery. This, along with the editing and cinematography issues I mentioned before, leave the first act feeling a bit disjointed. The film vastly improves in the second act, however, as we follow Nat through his adult life, meeting his wife and preaching at the other plantations. They also do a good job of showcasing the atrocities, but if you're looking for a movie solely about that, there are better movies out there like 12 Years a Slave. The purpose of this film was to depict the rebellion, and again, I just don't feel like they did a very good job getting across the magnitude of the event. I don't claim to be an expert, but I did do a little research after watching the movie. The rebellion lasted 3 days, left 60 whites dead, and only ended after a militia came in with artillery. I don't want to spoil the movie, but the rebellion as depicted in this film seems to last maybe a day. There's 3 plantations attacked, and then we have the final confrontation that leads to its downfall. And then it ends with some aftermath showing how angry the whites are. I'm by no means trying to defend what happened after the rebellion, but the reactions of the people depicted in the movie make more sense if you understand the magnitude of the rebellion, which again, I just don't think you get in this film. And that ends up leaving The Birth of a Nation a solid but by no means spectacular film with some decent acting and a truly interesting story that unfortunately just doesn't give us the payoff that we're promised. Now, as far as the controversy, I'm not going to pretend to know what happened in 1999. I know charges were brought against Parker. He was acquitted. I also know that the film's co-writer, Jean Celestin, was convicted, but that conviction was later overturned on appeal. As far as the film's Oscar chances, it definitely feels like they've taken a major hit. It made its initial debut in the wake of the Oscars So White controversy earlier this year, and many were holding it up as a standard bearer for how this year was going to be different than the last two. I just read an article in the Hollywood Reporter about how Fox Searchlight was getting fed up with Nate Parker and was going to shift its Oscar focus to Jackie, another biographical film starring Natalie Portman. So if you've seen The Birth of a Nation, what did you think of it? Do you think that the rebellion didn't get enough play in the overall screen time? As always, you can subscribe to my channel, check out some of my other reviews, and until next time, I'll see you at the movies.